So back again for one of these. In case you didn't watch the last one because it was a Fire Emblem video, basically the idea with this series is I will go through scripts for videos that never got made, sometimes just long abandoned and just completely irrelevant, or the amount of editing that would be needed, I just can't be arsed with it. That happens sometimes, but I want to get something done with it. So this is one where there's not enough time to make this as a real video. I was kind of hoping that NetherRealm would have gotten another trailer out by now. They're really holding back on that last couple of trailers. Essentially, this was just a few theories that I had for the game. I've still not looked at the leaks beyond what bastard commenters sent me. Well, two people on Twitter actually, but you know, who cares? It's basically just a few fun little theories I was going to make into a little video, but there's just not enough time for it, and it would require some reworking to make it into a proper script for these little, not really that serious theories, although they are things that I could see happening. At least one of these theories did get some people mad on Twitter, because apparently saying, here's what I think could be happening, means this is what I want to happen. You know, I mean, if you've seen the kind of backlash that MatPat very often gets, you've seen this kind of shit before. So, like last time, if I'm looking this way, I'm looking at the script and reading directly off it, and then when I have something to add, I'll be looking at the camera. Here's just some little theories I have for what could be going on in Mortal 1 Kombat. I didn't have an intro written, but I did have this little bit. I need to state up front that these are not things I want to happen, but things I think have a decent shot of happening. I need to say this because a bunch of people got unreasonably angry over them, over one of them on Twitter. Sub-Zero's father is the new Noob Saibot. With the recent revelation that Scorpion in this timeline is Kuai Liang, yeah, that's how long ago I started writing this, this leaves us without a backup Sub-Zero to replace Bi-Han if he dies and becomes Noob. So an alternative is needed. It could be a brand new character, but with the constant references to Bi-Han's father in his dialogue and the bios of himself and his two brothers, it feels like they're setting up something big involving him. One idea is that he will return as a Wraith to seek revenge on Bi-Han, who seems pretty obviously the one who killed him. So yeah, very basic. Noob Saibot is obviously going to come back. There's no way they are not going to include such an iconic character. They have theoretically shot themselves in the foot, because since Bi-Han becomes Noob Saibot traditionally, that means that they need a Sub-Zero as backup. And you've seen what NetherRealm will do when they don't have that. In MK9, they had the parallel of Bi-Han becomes Noob Saibot, Kuai Liang becomes Cyber Sub-Zero. They are both, what was it Kuai Liang calls them, like flawed copies of their former selves or something like that. And it was a neat idea, but then the idea of there being no new Sub-Zero, they backed down on it. Even though this was the same game they were introducing the new generation, they could easily just said a new Cryomancer Sub-Zero, maybe gone back to the old lore of the sister of the two Sub-Zeros, she could be the new Sub-Zero, but no. And that kind of inability to proceed with these drastic changes is one of the reasons why I'm so hesitant to believe they're actually going to do anything substantial in this one. It really feels like they'll just likely rehash a bunch of old ideas. And so Noob Saibot is a popular character, even divorced from Bi-Han. Remember, he wasn't Bi-Han until 2004, and he debuted in 1993. We need to have someone who can become Noob Saibot. So a lot of people think Hanzo could be the one to take that role, like the three of just all switch roles, like a Bison, Balrog and Vega situation. I don't think that's the case. I don't know what they would do with Hanzo, honestly, although I do have a theory here. But with Noob Saibot, I think it's more likely that if it's not Bi-Han, it will instead be the dead father of Sub-Zero and his brothers, because, you know, for a guy who was given very little attention previously, we got mention of him in the Mythologies manual and website about how he was a Lin Kuei sleeper agent who was in America, was called back to China, brought his sons with him. That's all we learn about him, other than the fact he's a third generation Lin Kuei, and that's it. That's not much. It's more than a lot of MK characters' parents get, but there's not a lot there. And then the second timeline, the sons were taken from them, and that's it. That's the only reference to this guy. But now there's a lot of focus being put on Sub-Zero's father, so it seems like that's there to lay the foundation for him to become Noob Saibot as a vengeful wraith, which also ties into the whole Bi-Han kills someone who then comes back as an undead for revenge. So you can see where it could appeal to the writers, where they keep going back to old ideas, swapping out what characters are involved, or trying to find a slightly new spin on it. Yeah, so I think of all these theories, it's probably one of the ones that has the highest chance of actually being true. Be careful down in the comments. There's probably going to be some arsehole who's going to be down there spoiling it, and once I've played through the game and I'm willing to brave the comments after that, I'll find them and I will ban them, because fuck those people. Kuai Liang is secretly adopted. This is the one that pissed people off. And I was going to say that whether that was in the script or not. Pissed people off for some reason. That's important. This is the one people convince themselves I was advocating for and calling a bad take despite not really being a take. Yeah, that's the thing people do. They'll say, this is a bad take. It's like, it's not a take. It's just a theory. I don't think a take is an opinion. You know, a theory is not an opinion. That a theory is true, can be an opinion, but these are not the same thing. Learn basic English, you dumb motherfuckers. The idea here is that Kuai Liang has Hanzo's old codename, colours and abilities, while Hanzo himself is nowhere to be seen. And that's as far as I got in writing that. Essentially the idea is, where is Hanzo? My idea was, well, if Kuai Liang's got so much of Scorpion's iconography, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he could have also got his identity. The idea being that, I think I came up with this theory actually before Smoke, his backstory was revealed as the adopted son of Sub-Zero's father. What my idea was, he had potentially killed these Japanese people, so I'm going to take this child in as my son, this Hanzo Hasashi. I'm going to give him a Chinese name, that being Kuai Liang. And tell me you couldn't see that being a thing that happens. A lot of these weird oddities feel like something that a Hollywood movie version would do. But I don't think it's unreasonable to think that that is a possibility, especially before Smoke was essentially given that role, pretty much. Smoke is the one whose parents were killed by Bihan's father, and so he took in the son who survived and had him as his son. Post-Smoke reveal, maybe not that likely, but without an alternative explanation for where Hanzo is, I think there is a pretty decent chance that could be the case. Although I think if I was going to rank these in terms of how much I think they have a chance of actually being true, this would probably be on the lower end. And here's an alternative explanation. Hanzo is Takeda. Put down your pitchforks, idiots. I was quite aggressive because of the way people responded to that last one, so I think if I had finalised the script, I would have toned some of this stuff down. Some people would say that's for the worst, because some people like it when I really go off on people. I'm trying to tone that stuff down a bit. Put down your pitchforks, idiots. I'm not saying the Takeda in the DLC is Hanzo. That seems to be what a lot of people think is being theorised by others when they say that. No, I'm saying Hanzo could be absent because he has replaced Takeda, the Shirai Ryu founder. Like Conquest, 2021, and I think Legacy, this Hanzo is from centuries back. He may have founded the Lin Kuei now that the Shirai Ryu don't seem to exist, and Kuai Liang is the inheritor of his legacy in the present day. Hanzo will return as a Spectre in the next game for whatever reason, maybe after Bihan kills his brother. I mean, especially with 2021, as mentioned, having Scorpion be from the ancient past, it's not difficult to imagine that they could have taken inspiration from that. Depending on when exactly NetherRealm started working on this game's story and the way the characters are being reimagined, how much of the stuff from that film they were privy to. Because remember, that film got delayed by like a year. It's supposed to come out in 2020, so it's possible that the people at NetherRealm knew about it even before Aftermath was out. They could have had time to look at that and go, there's an idea we could use for our reimagining, put Scorpion there. And it's a thing that is different from the games, but it's a familiar concept that the fans already know from other pieces of MK media. And so because of that, it won't feel so alien, it'll feel like a natural alternate take on the character. Again, it all comes down to Kuai Liang has been given Scorpion's everything except his actual given name. So where is Hanzo? Does Hanzo just not exist? Is he Kuai Liang? Is he the founder of the Shirai Ryu? Which again ties into Conquest, because Conquest, he was Takeda. He possessed Takeda's body, which was like the only time in that entire continuity that clan was ever mentioned. Honestly, I feel like this is probably more likely than the Kuai Liang one, but I do kind of want to get both theories out there just so that if one of them turns out to be true, I can say, I mean, I did get it right. I mean, that's the thing about, you throw out enough ideas, you're probably going to be right at some point, and then at that point it doesn't even matter how many times you were wrong. What matters is that you were right at some point. Oh shit, it's supposed to be in front of a green screen, isn't it? Fuck. Oh, damn it. I'll have to figure something out then. Now here's one I don't think anyone else has come out with. Takeda is a time cop. With the Kombat kids not being alive by the present day as far as we know, and with Takeda's random inclusion in the DLC and his somewhat more futuristic look, my theory is that Liu Kang made the Kombat kids into time cops to protect the timeline or the hourglass until the time comes for them to be reborn into the current timeline. Pretty self-explanatory. People did generally, I feel, like the Kombat kids, not so much Jackie. Cassie was decently popular, Takeda was very popular, I mean there's a reason he's back as DLC. I think generally liked Jin enough. And so when you take those characters who had just been introduced, create a new timeline where they can't exist for a few more games, because what they're going to do, a time skip again? Unless they introduce Cassie as Sonya's daughter but not related to Johnny, and Sonya and Jax are just older here, and Cassie and Jackie are, unless they do something like that, they're not going to show up, the Kombat kids. But if Liu Kang has made them continue to exist outside of time, and although time was rewound in MK11, In Aftermath, it wasn't. He could have just taken them, gave them shelter, and said, "You're going to be my elite protectors of the Hourglass." Admittedly, I don't think this is the case now. I have another idea for what could be going on since the Chapter 1 footage was released, where we saw the intro, and we saw, if you don't want to know about this, please leave, Kronika is in the game. What exactly she's here for, how much power she has, we don't know. But another theory I have now is that Takeda could be part of some kind of force she has brought through time. Maybe from another timeline. Maybe he's from a timeline in between 11 and this one that Liu Kang erased, and so Kronika was able to somehow use her power to save him. Here he is out for revenge. It's really interesting that he's there, and you look at every other character in this roster, and they're all villains. It's Quan Chi, who we already know has a role in the story. There's Ermac, who I'm going to get to in a minute. There's another theory I have about him. And in the NetherRealm timeline, Ermac was always a villain. Peacemaker, who is a villain at first, then becomes a bit more of an anti-hero. And we have Homelander, absolutely a villain. And then we have Omni-Man, who is also a villain. And then you have Takeda, who is just a good boy, who is with these villains. Why? And that's the thing, is it didn't have to be all villains otherwise. They could have easily licensed a non-villain. They could have easily had, instead of Ermac, another character, or put in Ermac and made him more resemble his Deception incarnation a bit more, to kind of imply he's more of a hero in this version. But Takeda's just here with the villains. Maybe he's allied with Kronika. I mean, there's a pretty decent chance that the villainous alliance of Quan Chi, Havoc, Nitara, Rain, General Shao, and all these people who are likely working together are probably allied with Kronika too. It's not on here, but another theory I've got is that Kronika is actually the one responsible for General Shao being the way he is. Because his backstory mentions how he was born weak and sickly and pathetic, which ties into Gira's talking about how Liu Kang he's made the villains weaker to neutralize them, which we see in the intro with Shang Tsung. So that suggests that he's responsible for that. And if Kronika's here to recruit Shang Tsung and say, you should be doing all this magic shit, let me help you with that, it's not unreasonable to assume that she's doing the same with General Shao, saying, hey, General Shao's father, well, not General Shao at the time, but hey, Shao's father, your son's destined for greater things. I can help you with that with some kind of procedure. Maybe Shang Tsung is even responsible for that, depending on how old Shang is and when that intro scene is set. So that's pretty obvious. But the point is, what if she's recruited a version of Takeda from another timeline who is resentful of his timeline being erased? And then this is set up for, well, either just like a what-if thing they've come up with, or set up for an Aftermath-style expansion. We don't know if that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure Aftermath was pretty successful, so I think there's a pretty decent chance they could do something like that. We'll have to wait and see, but there's two theories, well, there's three theories in one, I guess. Ermac is King Jared. Much has been said of Ermac's new design and his lack of mask. Him appearing alongside Quan Chi in the DLC got me thinking, is it possible? And that was all I wrote. Jared was part of Ermac's essence as of MK9, and with Jared still being referenced in this story, he's dead, of course, but without anything relating to the invasion of Edenia, as far as we know, it seems pretty likely that he was just assassinated by Quan Chi or something. And then the reason he doesn't look like a ninja is because this Ermac is very different. This Ermac could just be Jared, just him, brought back from the dead. And even if not, he could still be prominent, but I feel like the big departure in his physical appearance is likely related to this. Ermac could be Jared, or Jared could be the dominant soul who will have much more of an influence on Ermac's personality and motivations this time than previous. And that is going to depend on what exactly is being done with Sindel this time. Is he out for revenge because his wife killed him? Is he out for revenge on Quan Chi? Is he enslaved to Quan Chi, who killed him? So many ways it could go. We'll have to wait for the actual game before we can really theorise more about Ermac, but I think there's a decent shot of that. There's one more where I wrote the title down, and very little of a sentence. It was really just me writing it down so I could remember to do something with this. The DLC characters are from Shang Tsung's timeline. Takeda's presence in the DLC is... So basically with that one, it's that Takeda's weird, so could it be that he is from Shang Tsung's timeline? Maybe a freedom fighter from that timeline? It's interesting how that they show Shang Tsung coming through a portal in the initial trailer. Obviously it could happen with the way the story is now, but they're having this big portal that he walks out of with this armor on. It really gives a vibe of this is continuing from the other ending of Aftermath, and he's making his way over here. And I could see them doing something like that. I could see them doing a DLC that is either about Shang Tsung's timeline invading this one, or just a short, borderline non-canon DLC campaign focused on this other timeline. And so you might play as Quan Chi, who is a minion of Shang Tsung. He's the Shang Tsung to Shang Tsung's Shao Kahn, as it were. And Takeda's one of the freedom fighters opposing him. Ermac is there for whatever reason, and they throw in like a couple more characters, and that's what the campaign there is about. I could see them doing something like that. And that's it. Just today I released to patrons a video that is me going over all the currently revealed fights in the story mode, and by the time this goes out that'll probably be public. In that video I also go over my theories about the story based on that stuff, like here's what order I think these chapters are going to take place in, what that tells us about the story, like what's going to happen in it, and then theorising about the last couple of character chapters. Again, I was waiting for NetherRealm to put out a trailer, but they've not, so they're probably going to put one out the day of the early access thing. By then it's too late, so but that's out. If you want to see more theories relating to this game, go check that out. I still need to figure out what I'm going to do about this space, because it's not a green screen, and I kind of like how natural some of my reactions to going back over this stuff has been, and I don't want to lose that to get the green screen out. So I probably have to do a picture-in-picture thing and just have some. How do you do picture-in-picture with MK footage? Fuck. It's MK. It's bloody and violent and whatever. Who cares?